Okay then, this is a response to Woodland37's video from a couple of days ago, and in that video he was asking about people's music collections, so I thought I'd give it a go. So I've pulled out a stack of CDs. It's not necessarily everything, but I've tried to pull out some that are representative of what's in there. So I'll start, for better or worse, as the cat walks by, with Jethro Tull. So this is Minstrel in the Gallery. And I really like this album. They did a couple of progressive style albums with Thick as a Brick, which I really liked, and A Passion Play, which I didn't like quite so much. I thought it got a little bit too complex, and complex in a bad way, as in not quite as melodic. But this was where they went back to really what they were very good at. But yeah, I like this. There's some long songs, 20-minute songs like Baker Street Muse on it, but overall really good melodies and quite complex music without being pretentious. So the next one is Dream Theater, which some people like, some people don't. This one is Black Clouds and Silver Lining, and I really like this album. There are some Dream Theater albums I don't like quite so much, but this one was really good. It has got a couple of long songs in there. You've got The Count of Tuscany, which is 20-minute epic, and has this really good instrumental kind of ambient section in it, which is probably using some kind of volume pedal. But yeah, very, very good album. Speaking of good albums, Close to the Edge by Yes. This is probably the one that they're most well known for. There's this and Fragile, but I quite like this one and Tales from Topographic Oceans, because it's where they really try to be progressive and make these really long songs. And again, you've got one 20-minute song on this, and the first one, Close to the Edge, is 20 minutes, and then you've got And You and I and Siberian Catherine. That bastardised the name, but there you go. Really good album. This is a more recent one. This is not really Jethro Tull. It's Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull, but it's the sequel to Thick as a Brick, which is a fantastic album. And Thick as a Brick, which is in this pile, the vinyl version had this newspaper, and it's all about this kid called Gerald Bustock, and must be lying. The disc must be lying around somewhere. I should take more care of these. And it was what happens to him 30 years later. So it's about this boy who enters this poem competition. Yeah, good album. It sounds like a Jethro Tull album, even though it's just Ian Anderson from the original lineup. So this one is John Anderson's Elias of St. Hilo so John Anderson's was the singer from Yes. Bit of controversy there, but yeah, I really like John Anderson, and I think that this was the best of his solo work. So this was really a concept album. There's a bit of a Vangelis vibe in there, a little bit, but apparently I don't think he'd worked with Vangelis at that point. He did later on, but yeah, really, really good album. So some Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. This has got Shining You Crazy Diamond on. Yeah, I like that song. The other ones not so much. So Asia, the first one, Asia, love it or hate it. It's got Steve Howe from Yes, John Wetton, Jeff Downes, and Carl Palmer from ELP. But yeah, good album. I really like this one. Another John Anderson album. I'm not so keen on this. I like the last song. I really like the last song, but the rest, not so much. So, Manowar. This is my favourite of them. This is Kings of Metal. This is from 1988, and I believe it's the last one with Ross the Boss, who was the guitarist at that point. Really good. You'll probably notice this cover looks very, very similar to Turrican, the original one. Megadeth. This is So Far So Good So What. This is one of the early albums. I really like this one from the early ones. The sound quality is not great, but there's a certain rawness about it. It's not overly heavy. It's very kind of muddy in its sound. But there's some good songs like "In My Darkest Hour." Yeah, and there's a good instrumental on there. Vangelis, China, good album. Don't think there's any singing on this. It's all instrumental, but yeah, some of it's quite Asian sounding, but a lot of it's quite European as well. Marty Friedman, who was the guitarist for Megadeth. This was his second solo album. The first one was Scenes, which I do prefer, but this is a good album as well. Moon Sorrow, how do you pronounce this? Javietti. I kind of bought this on a whim a few years back, probably about 10 years ago, and no, maybe slightly under, maybe about 8 years ago. I really like this because it's really long and it's got really one song on it that goes on for an hour in 2 parts. I really like the guitars and the sound on it, but I just don't like the singing because it's kind of like death metal singing, and I really don't like that. Kick drums and that kind of singing, don't like. But the music I do. It's really thick and dense. So Jethro Tull, Songs from the Woods. This is where they went very much into their folk style. So there are 3 albums. This one, Heavy Horses and Stormwatch, that are in this style. But it's a good album. One of my favourites. So some Jean-Michel Jarre, and the disc is... Ooh, where's that? Ah, that's where it's gone. Zuluk from Jean-Michel Jarre. This is my favourite album from his. He did a lot of really good music in the early 80s with sampling, so pioneering this, and all the samples are human voices, which is quite impressive. So Anderson Wakeman, so this is John Anderson and Rick Wakeman, The Living Tree. This is one that I became aware of from their live show that they did about 5 years ago together. So both of them were, suffering from ill health at that point and weren't really up to doing large tours. So they did these small gigs around, cities in the UK, and I saw it in Manchester, and it was really, really good. There is a live CD of that performance, and a lot of the songs came from this album, but I didn't think it was that... The album wasn't as good as the live version, but it's still the good songs. So Thick as a Brick. This is my favourite Jethro Tull album. This is about Gerald Bustock that I mentioned, about the sequel. Yeah, it's got 2 songs on it, and they're each 22 minutes long. And it's this poem that he wrote. Well, it's fictitious, but the way it's done is as if it was real. Yeah, really, really, really good album. It was kind of a spoof of prog rock albums, but it ended up being really good. So that's the first and the biggest pile. So what else have we got? We've got Asia, Phoenix, and this was the album from 2008, and it had the original lineup back together again, who are sadly now no longer back together again because Steve Howe left a few years ago. I really like this. The songs are really quite... there's a lot of depth to them. I thought that the ones after this weren't quite so good. So this is Asia... what do they call it? Spirit of the Night. Can't be the typeface there. Really good Roger Dean artwork. But this was a show in Cambridge, I think, from the following year, and I really like that. I think this is better than the next live album that they did, which is the blue one with the tiger on it. I can't remember what it was called now. So this is Yes Songs. The sound quality is not great, but this was from the Close to the Edge era, and the songs is where they got Alan White on drums. And they're really quite overdriven. I won't say heavy, but they're really going for it on a lot of these songs, and it adds a bit more energy to them. So this is the Steve Howe album. Good album. This was his first one? I can't remember. But Steve Howe's the solo. Distracted there. Steve Howe is the guitarist from Yes, and this was his solo album, one of them. Paul Weller. This is Stanley Road, the first album he did as a solo artist, I believe. Yeah, really good album. Dire Straits' Love Over Gold. I prefer, what do they call it? Is it Making Money? The third album, the red one. But I like a lot of the songs on this, they're quite long. So this is Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman and Howe. So this was all the members of the original, well actually no, not the original, the classic Yes lineup, so Close to the Edge era, without Chris Squire. So it has Bill Bruford in there as well. This was from the late 80s, and they got together and made this album that's Yes in everything but name. So, what else? Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. This is the deluxe edition. It has a live CD, which is not great. It sounds like it's being recorded through a microphone, which is not amazing, but fantastic album. It's considered prog metal, but I don't know if it really is prog. It certainly is a concept album, and I prefer these guys to Dream Theater. I think they're a little bit more melodic. So Dream Theater, this is Train of Thought. This is where they went back to doing more straight metal. Okay, it's not one of their better ones, but it's quite good to listen to in the car. So MD45, The Craving, the only album by MD45, and this was a side project by Dave Mustaine from Megadeth. So this is from 1997. This is the original one that had Lee Ving doing the vocals, and when it got remastered, Dave Mustaine redid all the vocals, which makes it sound more like a Megadeth album, because at the time it wasn't that well received. So I think a lot of Megadeth fans bought it and didn't like the singer, or didn't like the sound of the singer rather. So this is Megadeth album, United Abominations. This is from 2007. This is really the second wave after Megadeth disbanded and got back together after Dave Mustaine's arm injury. But yeah, the one before this, I forget what it's called now, wasn't quite as good. It felt more like a solo album, but this was the first proper Megadeth album after that, and I really like this one. Endgame after this was a little bit more heavy, and it sounded a bit more like Rust in Peace, but I preferred this one. So Yes album, this is the third album that Yes did. This is one of my favourites. I'm not really a fan of Fragile, which is the one after this, but I preferred this one and Close to the Edge. So the songs on this are not quite as long, but they're probably 10-minute songs. But yeah, really good, a really good album. So back to Megadeth again, kind of varied taste. Rust in Peace. So this is the classic 1990 album. This really is a classic metal album, thrash metal album, and by many, they consider this is where Megadeth peaked. King Crimson Red. So this is again another fairly heavy sounding album. Very distorted guitars. This is probably the last King Crimson album that I've listened to chronologically. I think this is the last one they did in the 70s. But yeah, really good album. It's quite hard to listen to. It's quite harsh in its sound. So another Steve Howe album. This is a homebrew album. I think he's released number 5 now. But this is number 3. And it's just like a bunch of demos that he's released over the years. So often you can hear the final song that appeared on an album, but the demo is always a little bit different. So another classic, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. This was the reissue for the, what was it, 30th anniversary from a few years back. Not much to say on this one, it's just a fantastic album. Mark Knopfler, Golden Heart. So this was the first album he did as a solo artist after leaving Dire Straits, and I prefer this one out of all his solo albums. I think the songs are a little bit more loud, more electric, whereas I think he went a bit more acoustic after that. And I like Shangri-La, but after that, it didn't really do it for me. There's a DVD called, is it Mark Knopfler in London or A Night in London, which is like a live version of the show that went with this, and that's really good as well. Okay, so final stretch. I'll combine these together. So, another Yes album, Drama. So, this time John Anderson and Rick Wakeman are out, and the Buggles are in. Quite an odd album. It's very direct in its sound. So it was 1980, and this was the one before 90125 that had Owner of a Lonely Heart. And I know this gets discussed as being quite a turbulent time for the band, but it's a really good album. And I think, the Buggles adding input into this worked really well. So really, you could say part 2 to that, which is from 2011. So Yes didn't make an album for 10 years after Magnification in 2001. This is Fly From Here, which has got another really good Roger Dean cover. So it is the first one, in recent times without John Anderson, and it's got the Buggles back in. So yeah, Trevor Horn and Jeff Downes. Another good album. A lot of the songs in here are from the 80s. There was one called Fly From Here that was written in 1980, but it wasn't completed, or rather, it wasn't recorded on a Yes album, and it was expanded here to 20 minutes. So that's really good. Foo Fighters. Some albums I like, some I don't. So this is which one's this? There's Nothing Left to Lose, which is a good album. This has got Aurora and a lot of really melodic songs in it. King Crimson's Starless and Bible Black. This is the one before Red. Again, another good album, and I thought it was a bit more direct than Lark's Tongue in Aspic, which I thought was a bit pretentious. Rhapsody of Fire, Triumph and Agony. I don't remember whether this one's got Christopher Lee on it. Some do, some don't. This is from about 7 or 8 years ago. Triumph and Agony. Yeah, good album. Italian metal band. Devin Townsend, Ziltoid. This was a solo album by Devin Townsend. Very bizarre. It's about this guy that's working as a barista, and he has these kind of arsehole customers that come in, and he pretends in his mind he has this fantasy that it's all about this Ziltoid alien. Really good album. Another cat behind me. Manowar. This is Louder Than Hell. It's the one where they got what's his name? Chris Logan. Is it Chris Logan? The current guitarist after Ross the Boss left. There's one between this and the one I looked at before, which has like a really long epic in there, but I didn't quite like it as much. But this was a good album. So Stereophonics, Performance and Cocktails, really good kind of 1990s kind of nostalgia. There's a lot of songs on this. When I hear them, I think, it's 1999 again. Huh, that's weird. It's backwards. But yeah, this is, a lot of the songs on this were fairly well played on the radio. You've got The Bartender and the Thief, Pick Apart, that's new. That was the one that I always used to remember a lot from the radio, and I Wouldn't Believe Your Radio. That was played a lot as well. So last two, House of Yes. This is from 2000. This was to support their 1999 album The Ladder, which is one of my favourites. And yeah, really good. There are two guitarists this time. So it's got Billy Sherwood as well. And I think that works really well. So the last one is Jethro Tull, The Crest of a Knave. Now this one was where Ian Anderson's voice was starting to go, and he started to sound at this point a lot like Mark Knopfler. It's kind of odd, if you hear this it almost sounds like a Dire Straits album, but yeah, there's a little bit of electric in there, as in like electric music, early sampling and things like that. But I think it worked really well. The songs are really good. So you get Budapest, which is quite a nice complex song, you know, with a lot of the flute in there, which is what Ian Anderson's is famous for. So yeah, right, I think I'll leave it there. So this is my wretched hive of scum and villainy of music tastes. So yeah, thanks for watching.